I'm Jennifer Gonzalez from the Cult of Pedagogy podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Make sure you check out all the other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com. And get ready, because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1...
Well, hey there, Burned In Teachers. Welcome to Season 3 and Episode 41 of the Burned In Teacher podcast. One part burnout and all other parts action, inspiration, and support for teachers dealing with burnout. I'm your host, Amber Harper, and I'm so grateful that you're spending your precious time with me today, especially because this is the first episode of Season 3. It's been quite a summer around the Harper household, and everyone is now back in school, and the day-to-day routine and grind of the 2019-2020 school year has begun. How's it going for you? I strategically placed this Season 3 opener a week after Labor Day because I wanted this first episode of the season to relate to all teachers, at least here in the United States, in terms of back-to-school encouragement. Today, we're talking about beginning where you are in your fight against teacher burnout. And you may say, Amber, what do you mean begin where you are? I'm at school, like always, already feeling overwhelmed, and that starts to creep in around week 2. Don't worry, I gotcha. That's what this episode is all about. Beginning this school year differently than you ever have in terms of retracing your steps to how you got to where you are now. So that as we spend time with each other moving forward in this season, both the school season and the season of this podcast, you're able to take actionable steps against your specific type of burnout. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt so overwhelmed with frustration and stress that you don't even know where to begin? Or have you ever been so isolated by the feeling that no one could possibly understand your situation and how you're feeling? Or have you ever said to yourself, I can do it all myself. In fact, that's my only choice. Or I'm too old. I've been doing this too long to change my situation. There's nothing else out there for me. Well, let me tell you, Burned In Teacher, no matter where you are on your journey, this episode is all about starting where you are so you can take your next best steps in your education journey. This is for you. So, are you ready? Good. Take a deep breath and let's get started. Welcome to the Burned In Teacher podcast. I'm Amber Harper, and the educators on this podcast are brave enough to share their stories of burnout with the world. On BIT, we get real, we get honest, and we take action. Action against the burnout with stories from burned out teachers, advice from experts, and actionable steps you can take today to beat the burnout and become a happier, more fulfilled human being. Let's get started. If you're ready to name that burnout type and take specific action steps to beat it, then I want you to head over to burnedinteacher.com/burnout quiz and take my free teacher burnout quiz. It only takes 3 minutes, it's 6 questions, and you'll not only be able to name your burnout type when you're done, but you'll get my free teacher burnout cheat sheet in your inbox right away that helps you identify your stage of burnout and what specific steps you can take to beat your type. Again, go to burnedinteacher.com/burnout quiz to take the free quiz and also get the free cheat sheet to walk you through the steps you can take to begin to kick burnout to the curb. All right, so for this episode, I've got 5 action steps that are going to help you to begin where you are this school year in terms of beating your burnout. But first, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. I want to tell you a little bit about how this season is going to go. I'm going to give you a trailer of sorts that helps you to understand where these episodes are going to be going as you go throughout the BIT podcast season so you can prepare yourself for some serious changes this school year. It's come to my attention after multiple DMs, that's direct messages, emails, podcast episodes, and one-to-one conversations that many teachers who have either heard or heard of Burned In Teacher don't quite understand why it's called Burned In Teacher and how it can help them, how I can help them, how any of the resources I've created can help them to identify and beat their burnout type. So this season is sort of an 8-month unpacking of what burned in means and what the 8-step process of becoming a burned in teacher is all about. What, you say? 8-step process? Tell me more. Well, of course, I'd be glad to. So you probably noticed that this episode is called Begin Where You Are, right? Well, that's exactly what B in Burned In stands for. See, Burned In is an acronym. And if you haven't listened to episode 4, way back, almost a year ago, by the way, when I first did like a little bit of an unpacking of what Burned In was, or is rather, and I just assumed that everybody would listen to that episode and know what it is. Well, realistically, you may not have gone back that far if you started listening, let's say in episode 23. So I decided that what I thought would be the most helpful for you is if each month of this season, we spent time going very deep into that step of the burned in process. So every episode this month in September is going to be about beginning where you are, reassessing and reflecting on your journey to how you got to this place of burnout to begin with, and actionable steps you can take to really truly identify what has triggered your burnout in the first place. Next month in October, we're going to move on to understand your teacher brand. That's what U stands for in Burned In. R will be reflect on your challenges. That will be November. And then we'll move on month by month with N, nurture your strengths. E, extend your reach and possibilities. D, determine your long-term goals. I, initiate lasting change. And then the last month of the season will be N, never settle. So hopefully that helps you to understand a little bit. If you've never heard of the burned in process, now you know what it means and what I take teachers through whenever I work with them through the burned in process, either through the ebook or the burned in teacher training course. So we're getting started today with Begin Where You Are. And like I said a minute ago, I have 5 steps that I'm going to encourage you and challenge you to take this week, hopefully, or at least this month, where you can start to begin where you are in identifying what has brought you to this place of burnout. So step 1 is this. Step 1 is simply identifying what type of teacher burnout you're dealing with. And if you have been a loyal listener to the Burned In Teacher podcast and you knew about the quiz already and you've taken it, here's something really interesting. There's a member of my Burned In Teacher tribe who has not only taken the quiz once, she's actually taken it twice. When she took it back last spring, she was feeling certain ways about her situation and current reality in education. And she went through the burned in process with me through my small group program and has continued to be a really loyal participant and really active in our membership group. And she just took it again the other day and actually is identifying with a different type. So please don't feel like, oh, I've heard all this before, so this doesn't apply to me. It totally applies to you because as you've heard me talk about before, burnout doesn't come once and then goes away and then you never have to deal with it again. This is a great place to start over if you find yourself struggling with different situations and different triggers that could be causing you to feel that burnout again. So if you find yourself in week 1 or week 3 of the school year already, I know some of us just went back a week ago and some of us have been in school since the beginning of August. So no matter where you are, the first step is I'm going to encourage you to go to burnedinteacher.com/burnout quiz, which you just heard the promo for that quiz because it is the number one way to really put a finger on where you should start. It's been a huge help for thousands of teachers who have taken this quiz. So when you take the quiz, you're going to come out on the other end, and it's very quick, by the way. It's only 6 questions, takes about 3 minutes, depending on how deeply you read and think about your answers. But on the other end of the quiz, it will identify you as burned and over it, burned and unbalanced, or burned and bored. And there is also an option that says not burned out, just need a slight adjustment. And that just means that maybe there's just something that you just can't put your finger on quite yet. You're not really feeling burned out, like you want to quit teaching or anything, but you just know that something's off, all right? So burned and over it is where you may find yourself saying things like, no matter how hard I work, I'll be disappointed with the results. You've been surrounded by negativity and apathy, and therefore you're feeling negative and apathetic. Burned and unbalanced is the most popular outcome of the quiz. This is for obvious reasons. There's so much to do and not enough time to do it, and you're really struggling with balancing everything. And the third one is burned and bored, where you're not feeling frustrated. You're just feeling a little under challenged. So that's step one, take the teacher burnout quiz, burnedinteacher.com/burnout quiz. Super quick, totally free. Now, the next step is actually identifying your stage of teacher burnout that you are in, okay? So once you take the quiz, you're going to have the ability to download the teacher burnout cheat sheet, which is also free, where I take you through 3 steps to actually begin this burned in process, okay? So what you're gonna do is you get the cheat sheet, and the second step there, and the second step that I'm talking to you about today, is actually identifying your stage. See, what I've done is I broke down the ways that you will feel, the things that you're doing, or the things that you're thinking about in these different stages of burnout. So I have 6 stages, and they are stage 0, which is burned out, right? This is, wanting to quit teaching. You just cannot possibly go on this way. This next stage is stage 1. That's build your spark. Stage 2 is build your ignition. Stage 3 is build your flame. Stage 4 is build your fire. And stage 5 is, of course, burned in. This is where you have very different feelings from that stage 0. So as you look at these stages, you can identify how you're feeling, what you've done or what you are currently doing or what you're thinking about, and you can just see how burned out you really are. This has been extremely powerful for people that I've worked with, especially, and let me tell you something. When I do breakout sessions or I work with groups of teachers in a room, when they come in to see me, they look very ashamed. They're hoping nobody saw them come in the room. And let me tell you, when they take the quiz and they're able to name their type of burnout, their shoulders relax. They sit back in their seat. They smile at the person sitting next to them. And they have that childlike look like, that's me. I'm not crazy. I can name these feelings that I'm having. And then to see them identify their stage. And you might be a mixture of 0 and 1, like a 1.5 or a 2.5. But being able to identify those things is extremely impactful. If after today's episode you're wanting more, check out this month's Burned In Teacher podcast freebie at burnedinteacher.com/begin. In it, I break down what it means to begin where you are, because Burned In is an 8-step acronym. B stands for begin where you are. U stands for understand your teacher brand. R is reflect on your challenges. N is nurture your strengths. E is extend your reach and possibilities. D is determine your long-term goals. I is initiate lasting change. N is never settle. So go to burnedinteacher.com/begin and get this month's BIT podcast freebie, Chapter 1 of my ebook, Burned In Teacher Training, 8 Steps to Go From Surviving to Thriving in Education. Enjoy the chapter, take action, and burn on. You heard that right. I am giving away Chapter 1 of the Burned In Teacher Training ebook for free to you, so that you can actually go through these steps, not alone, but with a step-by-step guide. So go to burnedinteacher.com/begin right now, or when you get to school, if you're on your way there or you get home, get there and go to burnedinteacher.com/begin, because I don't want you to feel this way anymore. And I want to give you any resource necessary to help you to feel different and do different. And so we've only gone through the first 2 steps. So the other steps that I'm going to talk about here are in Chapter 1, which you can download for free. So if you've already started to ask this question, well, is she going to give away a chapter every month? Well, I don't know. Maybe you're going to have to listen next month and see. Okay, so let's move on to step 3 now of what you're going to do this month to begin where you are. You're going to ask yourself this question. Now that you know your burnout type, you know your stage, you need to really think about how long you've been in this place. And this is both physically and metaphorically, all right? So asking yourself questions like, well, how long have I taught this grade level? Or how long have I worked in this building or this corporation? And we call them corporations here in Indiana mostly, but districts as well. How long have I worked for this principal? How long have I been in this physical classroom? And then you're also asking yourself, how long have I felt this way? When did I have my first twinge of burnout? When did I first start questioning my choice to become a teacher? What is it that started to happen that really brought me to this place? See, we've really got to dig deep into the why of why we got to this place so that we can take the appropriate action steps. I'm all about self-care. I did a whole self-care summer series this past summer, but self-care is also taking action and taking care of yourself by really paying close attention and doing things you've never done in order to get yourself out of this place of burnout and shame and isolation and frustration, all of those feelings that you may be feeling right now. So you're really going to ask yourself, how long have I been here? Both physically and, of course, with your feelings and your thoughts, okay? Step 4 is you really need to identify who your people are. And this is really, really important because in the steps coming up in the burned in process, we are going to continually come back to your people. And really what it comes down to is who do you want to have the biggest impact on in these changes that you're making? So are your people your students? Or maybe you have an excellent rapport with your students, but you have a terrible relationship with your administrator or your colleagues. So who is it that you really need to work on building a bridge with rather than a wall? And I've written about that and done some episodes about that in the past about building a bridge rather than a wall whenever you are faced with struggling relationships. So identify your people is step 4. And then step 5 is what are your core values? What are the words that you're going to come back to when you have to make a tough decision or when things just get hard and you really need to think about coming back to your why and your purpose in your career? Now, Brené Brown suggests that you choose 2, and there are hundreds of words that you can choose from. So if you go ahead and Google words for core values or whatnot, and maybe you've done this in the past, really reassessing what your words are. My words are empowerment and compassion. And that is exactly what I'm trying to do here with the podcast is I'm trying to empower you. I want to show you compassion because I have been there. I have been where you are. I have cried in my car on the way to work. I have felt ashamed and isolated and stuck. And then I decided that I'm going to empower myself by doing research and taking action. And that's exactly what I want for you. So identify your core values. Write them down every day. Come back to them. Make a word cloud about them. I don't care what you do, but get those words in your face. Live and breathe them and know them to your core. That's why they're called core values. So there you have it. Your 5 steps to begin where you are and beat teacher burnout in 2019. I'm hoping that you really internalize today's episode. It's a shorty, but it's a goodie. So step 1 was take the teacher burnout quiz, identify your type. That's at burnedinteacher.com/burnout quiz. And then if you choose to download the cheat sheet, you're going to go to the next step, which is identify your stage of burnout. Are you a stage 0? Are you a stage 2? Step 3 is then to really reflect and think about how long you've been physically in this place of burnout and emotionally in this place of burnout. This may take a while. For some of you, it may have been a couple of years, or maybe 10 years. My goodness. So you may have to really dig deep, all right, to find these answers. You may have to talk to some people too, ask them when you started to change and they've noticed these changes in you as well. Step 4 is identifying your people. Who are the people you want to have the biggest impact on? Who are the people that you want to change your relationship with? All right. We've got to create that focus. And the 5th step is identifying your core values, those words that you're going to come back to when things are hard or you have to make a tough decision. These will help you again to narrow your focus as you begin to take extremely actionable and impactful steps out of burnout in this 2019-2020 school year. All right, so that's all I have for you for this first episode of season 3 of the Burned In Teacher podcast. And I want to leave you with this piece of advice. As you go into your week and the agent of same, Perfection Patty, says, if this isn't perfect, it's not good enough to use or do, you're going to call on the agent of change. Try it out, Trevor. You're going to say, I am brave enough to try new things, make mistakes, and learn from them. All right. So as you're trying these things you've never tried before, talk positively to yourself. You are your own hero. I'll see you next week. Burn on. If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, you can head over to burnedinteacher.com where you can access the entire vault of Burned In Teacher podcast episodes and more information about ways I want to help you go from burned out teacher to burned in human. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so grateful if you would head over to iTunes and leave a review and a rating about the Burned In Teacher podcast. Until next time, take a deep breath, because you just took another step to becoming a burned in teacher. Burn on.